Okay, hello everybody, and today we're moving into the next section on gratitude. I'm reminded of this old story. I think I saw the movie Fight Club, and I was thinking about things I wanted to do before I died. It was a part in the movie, and one of the things that I had said in my mind years ago is I wanted to see a banana tree, and seeing the banana tree, which I've now seen, was connected to this idea of understanding where my food came from. And that's what we're going to think about, and I'm going to encourage you to exercise today. So, some foods you probably understand where they came from, you probably understand how they were processed, but basically I want you to take a look at some of the ingredients. I mean, as you go through this process, you're going to sit down and you're going to start to realize that the average modern American meal comes from so many sources. It's astounding, and there's so much work and effort and fossil fuels and just all sorts of things that have gone into bringing something as simple as a hamburger together. So I'll use the hamburger as an example. So when you sit down and you pick up an ingredient or you're looking at a meal, I want you to go ahead and visualize the process and backtrack through to the point where the ingredients actually come from the earth. Okay, so if we're thinking about the hamburger, you take the bun, and maybe it's one of those classic buns with sesame seeds on it, right? So you think about, okay, the sesame seeds, I don't even know exactly how a sesame seed grows, but that might be something you want to Wikipedia. But you've got sesame seeds, and then you've got flour, maybe there's a little bit of egg, certainly yeast, some water, salt, right? But just think about the flour. So you think about the flour and you go back to the mill where they ground the grain, and then you think about the grain that actually grew in the land and the sun and the people who harvested the grain, taking it to the mill, taking it to the flour, or making it into the flour. And then the flour is packaged and it gets delivered, and it's probably been distributed to various places, and then it arrives in some sort of kitchen and it's mixed with the salt and the water and the yeast. It's given rise, and it's baked into buns, right? And then we have a bun. Simple, right? You go into the cheese, right? Maybe it's a blue cheese. Maybe it's a strong cow's blue cheese. And you think about the cow and the way they raised the cow, what they fed the cow, the farm the cow was on. What did the cow eat? Was the cow happy? What were the farmers like, right? Were they, was this a big industrial process, or was it a small scale farm doing little small batches of cheese, right? But think about milking the cows, right? And you think about putting the, whatever it is, the culture, the bacteria, whatever is making the cheese blue, right? In the process of it going through this aging process, actually being alive and growing these different things and aging until it gets just this right flavor, and then of course distributed, shipped, cut, put on the burger, melted, this entire thing. You might think about the grilled onions. Where did the onions grow, right? Where did the onions grow? How did they get there? Who sliced the onions? Are they cooked? Are they raw? Are they red? Are they white? And just visualizing. Then you go to the pickle. Maybe you have a pickle on the side. And it's a cucumber. Okay, so where did the cucumber grow? Maybe it grew in the Salinas Valley, right? Maybe it was in this California desert that's been irrigated, and they grew the pickle, or the cucumber, right? But then they had to add vinegar, right? Where did the vinegar come from? How do they make the vinegar? Okay, maybe they took grape juice or something, and it fermented, and then it eventually became vinegar, and then they probably added sugar and some spices. Okay, where did the spices grow? Okay, how did they process the sugar? Sugar cane beet sugar, where is it coming from? All this gets mixed together, and we make the pickle, right? Then you go on to the ketchup, right? The ketchup. Ketchup was originally a fermented condiment, right? So where does the ketchup come from? What is ketchup, right? Tomato and spices and various flavors that's been cooked and sealed and made to have a long shelf life. And then we go to the beef, right? Of course, the beef. Can't leave out the beef. Think about the beef. Was the beef frozen? Was the beef fresh? You can taste it if you really start paying attention. You can actually tell. okay, what part of the cow was this? Right, the ground beef, was it chuck? Where did it actually come from on the cow, most likely? Where does ground beef come from on an animal? Who ground the beef, right? Was it ground by the cooks who made your burger? Did you grind the beef? Was it ground by the grocery store you bought it from? How did it get into this state of ground? What is that grinding? Think about the processor, and it's driving actual meat, which is muscle fiber, right? It's muscle fiber of an animal. So you go back and you say, okay, well, we had the cow that was the dairy cow and was creating the cheese, right? The milk that then became the cheese. But then maybe that same cow, probably not, probably a different cow, right? Was slaughtered. Well, how is this cow slaughtered, right? I've done some reading the work of Temple Grandin, who was an autistic woman who is the world's best consultant for slaughterhouses, right? And she talks a lot about this process. She's got a beautiful process of getting into the mind of a cow, literally walking how the cow walks, hearing what the cow hears, and understanding how to create a more efficient, better process that's more humane, better for the animals, doesn't scare them as much, all sorts of things. But how was that cow slaughtered? Who slaughtered that cow? How old was it when it was slaughtered, right? And when it was slaughtered, then they're literally cutting the muscles off the cow, right? And those muscles are probably getting wrapped up in some way, and they're getting somewhere, and then they're grinding it, right? And they're running it through the processor, and then all that gets shaped into patties. Now, do the patties, are they flavored? Is there some egg in the beef patty? Is there salt? Is there breadcrumbs? I mean, what's going on with that beef patty? Maybe it's just ground packed beef, right? How has it been cooked? Is it still red in the center? Is it have some of those juices dripping out, or is it more well done, more dry? Right? Just noticing. So clearly this is a very sort of long process you can go down. We're just doing a hamburger. Try doing your breakfast, right? Your coffee, your bagel, your cream cheese, all these different things. Try doing a pizza, right? All these different things that we take for granted as simple foods, most of them really aren't simple. At least they wouldn't have been 200 years ago, right? So I encourage you today to really take some time to become aware of the process chain of how your food comes from the earth to your plate. Just visualizing that process while or before you eat anything today.